Sometimes they say he doesn't act presidential. And I say, hey, look, great schools, smart guy. It's so easy to act presidential, but that's not going to get it done. In fact, I said, it's much easier, by the way, to act presidential than what we're doing here tonight, believe me. And I said,
Space Action Podcast!
And I said, with the exception of the late, great Abraham Lincoln, I can be more presidential than any president that's ever held this office. That I can tell you. It's really easy. I think that with few exceptions, no president has done anywhere near what we've done. Not even close. Not even close.
Welcome to Space Action Podcast, a division of Space Action Heroes, which you can find at spaceactionheroes.com. I am Chris Carson.
DC and Shama.
And this week we are going to talk about a movie that I think is incredibly relevant to talk about in this moment of time, which is George Orwell's 1984, the 1984 released adaptation. There were
Directed by Michael Radford.
There were two adaptations before. There was like a 1952, I think, movie, and then there was like a late 50s television series.
Yeah.
That were loose adaptations of it. This was the most true one, released in 1984 to honor the title of the book, not any kind of anniversary. We just heard that maybe there's a new remake coming out.
2019. It looks like Paul Greengrass, director of the Bourne films, appears to be working on it.
Interesting. It's going to be so action-filled and PG-13.
I really hope the camera's shaky as fuck to really show the totalitarian control.
That'll really drive it home. So I watched this movie in film school, and then I watched it again in preparation for this podcast. You saw it for the first time.
Yeah, I read the book in high school, and by read the book, I mean, oh my god, was I high on drugs as I flipped through it. I'm a dystopian future nerd. Like Clockwork Orange is probably one of my favorite books ever, so I love the
Ultimate teen flick.
Yeah,
sorry.
I love the themes in it. And at that time, I remember in high school, V for Vendetta, which I'll get into later, both the graphic novel and the movie were oh, no, I'm sorry. No, the movie came out when I was in university.
Novel was from the 80s.
But the graphic novel, I remember I was a fan of just these themes of this because, like, you know, specifically when it comes to the British, this Thatcher greed is good kind of mentality.
Oh yeah,
was revelatory to me as a 15-year-old. Like, oh, that's why the world is the way it is.
Right.
You know,
because of the English,
exactly.
who were once the Italians. I love. There was, to completely go off topic for a second. I had a great revelation moment. I was watching an interview with the creator of Doctor Who, and he has brown eyes and curly hair. And I just thought, if you want to see a black guy 50,000 years removed from Africa, find a brown-haired, curly-haired British guy, because you can follow the lineage right up from the Fertile Valley to Greece to Rome to colonizing the English Isles, fighting all them white apes from up north, the Irish, that became the Irish and the Scottish.
Right.
It's like a direct lineage right up. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I'm also realizing now that Bruno Mars looks extremely Italian.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, especially when he wears a suit.
Very much so. But anyways, that was completely off topic, but I just had that thought the other day. I was like, that's funny, because that's actually true. You can follow the exact lineage all the way up. But, so what were your impressions of 1984 watching it for the first time?
For the first time ever, first and foremost, R.I.P. John Hurt. I know he's died a while ago, but he's easily one of my favorite directors, although you were saying...
Oh, John Hurt apparently
is a dick.
Is a bit of a, hard to work with. He's a bit of an auteur in that way.
Not really surprising for like a classically trained English actor. I'm not shocked.
It was Sigourney Weaver who said in one of the making ofs Alien that John Hurt was a real shithead on set, and then Ridley Scott couldn't yell at John Hurt because John Hurt was a big famous name, so he would take it out on her because she was a nobody.
I'm pretty sure, like, if John Hurt wasn't a boozer, by God, did he look the part.
Oh, for sure.
So I can imagine just, like, him being kind of a dink, you know?
He just seems like, But again, you gotta separate. Unless they do monstrous things, you gotta separate the art from the artist.
Like, his performance in this movie, dude, like, you have him, just his cruising altitude is a broken man with a 1,000-yard stare. That's him normal.
Yeah.
Seeing the extremities in which they push Smith throughout the whole movie, you're like, Jesus Christ, he owns that performance.
Yeah.
By the end of the movie, you're like, good Lord, when he's on that gurney just straining and sweat, that performance is out of control.
Just drooling and the drool from his lips sticking together. It's amazing.
So, I'm going to just broadly talk about the movie. Visually insane. I'm not exactly sure where they shot it, but my God.
They said there's actually a point in the credits that says we shot it in during the months that the book is set in the year 1984, in the area that the book is set. So they really true to form.
They used the famous Battersea Power Station, the one from the cover of Animals by Pink Floyd.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember at one point seeing those famous smokestacks in the background. They're very distinct. You can't mix them.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole area, there's something about that specific power station between Pink Floyd, Children of Men, this movie. Maybe it's the idea that that's the powerhouse that literally powers the Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
But a lot of Brits, I find, use that as an imagery for just machinations of totalitarian control.
Right.
It's a very, very clear symbol. But that whole neighborhood was perfect aesthetically. It gave the look of like a burnt out city.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
The production value was nuts.
Because it was the thing, the production value was so great, the additions they made to it, but then where they chose to shoot was also pretty run down and horrible, so it just worked. And
also, and the idea that this was 84, so you're dealing with, if I'm not mistaken, this is during the Thatcher administration.
Oh, yeah?
So let's see, she was elected in office 79 to 90. So this is right in the heart of it. And I am not a Margaret Thatcher fan. I think she's a racist, terrible piece of shit.
She was a monster.
She's the Iron Lady. Fuck her.
Yeah.
So just seeing, I can't imagine what it was like for the English. It was an English production. The idea of them being like, this is too fucking perfect. Like, literally, the movie that we want to make is in our faces. Right. Margaret Thatcher, greed is good.
Right, yeah.
Fucking telling us that I'll subjugate, obey, listen to their government. Our government has our best interest in mind. Do not question
this. Do not question this. 4 is 5.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It was kind of, it's one of those things that you can't believe how much life imitated art.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. I mean, I don't think it was reading any tea leaves for George Orwell to see where the world was going.
Right.
But then his into fascism was Hitler and Stalin. Yeah. So I think we were saying this earlier, by today's standards, it worked in 1984 with Margaret Thatcher because that was still sort of in the vein of those earlier empires' assertions of authority. Now we're in a whole new world.
See, and
now we're in the next generation.
That's what kind of scares me the most, because we watched the tail end of it together, and when I realized in the book and concordantly the movie, their antagonists are the outside, the unknown, invisible enemies. It's always about like the other supercontinents. What are they doing? How does that
Eurasia and East Asia?
In East Asia, like those are our threats to Oceania. Therefore, we rally together. Blah blah blah. That's similar to the Cold War. The Reds are everywhere. Watch what you say, loose lips.
Well, that's why Big Brother had the mustache, because he was supposed to be Stalin.
But now, ain't like that anymore.
It's evolved. They've gotten, because they realized you can't do it like that anymore. People are on to us.
Yeah.
So they had to do it more subtly.
Domestic.
They had to, there's no longer East Asia and Eurasia. There's now Republicans and Democrats, right and left.
Yep.
Conservatives and...
because you can sustain that, Chris.
You can sustain that.
You can't keep an other as an enemy for so long.
You got to turn it onto yourself.
The second you start putting that paranoia into the water, you're fucking drinking water. There you go.
And like back then, you could subjugate people by saying certain words are now illegal because they provoke certain thoughts that we want to kind of not allow our society to dwell on. Now you don't need to. Now you just have Twitter. You just make everyone have to reduce their conversation to 100-odd characters. And we're self-censoring. We're doing it ourselves. You get national reports where speaking proper English is now racist. Like that was a whole thing about a year ago, and it's like, and I get like that's what I was gonna say, and I'm gonna actually just say this. I don't know what to say to call them, because the far left are insane.
Yep.
The far right are insane.
Yep.
I don't want to use terminology like social justice warrior, because that's what the left or right wing assholes use.
Lefties and righties.
Lefties and righties. They're both, the fringe element of both sides are insane, and so the fringe element was really rocking this idea that speaking proper English was racist. And it's like, you don't realize that you're...
What was the example? I don't think I know this one.
It was a woman, I don't remember what, I think she was from Trinidad maybe, and she was, I don't remember the event, the catalyst that started off. Maybe it was a job that didn't hire her or something, but she was just going on about how you should know what I mean, feel what I mean, having to speak proper English. That's white man's language. I don't want to, like, that's racist to say, other than if you're not white, you shouldn't have to speak this, you should just know what I'm saying.
Right.
It was just insane. If you're listening, just Google that woman. Google proper English is racist. It'll come up. But and all the far left people were like on board. They were like, that's right, you know, like it's like the Sacha Baron Cohen character from Who is America, like, I am a self-hating white man.
Can we come back to that at the end of this?
Yes, we can.
Because I've watched 3 episodes and fuck,
It's amazing.
Oh, it's pretty great.
But it's just, my issue is that these people don't realize they're playing into what the other side wants.
Yep.
They're playing into this narrative of keeping everyone dumb, keeping everyone unable to communicate with each other, and then you can't coalesce to form a revolution if you don't know the words in order to rile people up, you know?
What's so scary, and I guess the themes are prevalent in both of them, both 1984 and modern day history, both of them, and modern day history, is the idea that, like, them, they, whatever you want to call them,
right,
the 1%, the other, those guys, they've learned dissonance to a T, where it's just like, we can't control people. Like, everyone in control knows that if I designate different ranks and, you know, classes, it's the easiest way to keep people bickering amongst themselves while I do my own shit and take shit from them.
Just keep them distracted. Trump's the ultimate distraction. Yeah.
Exactly. Just have a fucking blowhard out there to keep everybody entertained.
In the meantime, your
and arguing.
Your attorney general is creating a religious task force to defend Christianity.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like what's so fascinating about 1984 is, again, the idea that, like, it was fear to unite behind this ideal of you're getting fucked over. And that's kind of what it is now. When I hear Trump going down south and being like, putting on a hat and being like, we're going to bring jobs back down here.
Jobs.
Jobs. And I'm just like, you're it's a false flag, dude. That's not at all what's going to happen. Like,
well, I think it's not better represented than in, remember the scene where chocolate rations are going from 30 to 25? So they just say they're going up from 20 to 25.
Yep. And everyone loses their shit.
And everyone goes, oh, yay, we're getting more chocolate. And they just change the narrative.
Yep.
And that's just what's happening now, but it's so much more subtle and insidious. People don't even realize it's happening.
Well, we don't have one guy with an old telephone giving us unreliable news. We have an entire network a global network, and that's completely unreliable now. And it's just like, it's fracturing the image to the point where you don't even know what's real anymore.
No, and that's the point. Keep them confused. Keep them arguing. Keep them controlled. But then, I don't know, it's like...
the irony is that in 84 it was about unification. Now it seems to be about division.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
And I think something that absolutely horrifies me, is that we always know that unknown to the public information has always been a decade ahead of public information.
Right.
Like, fuel companies knew about global warming 20 years before the public did.
Yep.
So it's concerning when you think about how the totalitarianism that's on the rise across the world is the type of lifestyle that will keep the human race alive if there's a massive global catastrophe.
Right.
If all of a sudden the weather goes the way we all know it's going, the ice caps suddenly melt, progressive ideologies won't keep human species alive.
Right.
Horrible, insidious, monstrous tactics will, and that's so fucking scary.
You remember, what do you call it? The G20 summit a couple years ago. I use this all the time because as a Torontonian who lived through that shit.
I got hassled.
I fucking fled the city. I was a black man with dreadlocks and tattoos. I am not going to be here.
Me and Ryan, the guy who does our website, we were like, let's get in the middle of this shit. And we got hassled a lot by the cops. They kept looking through our bags and asking what we were doing, and it was very, very odd.
So once you do that, or even the protest in, god damn it, was it Charlottesville, where they started militarizing, like random fucking dudes were showing up with automatic weapons and military.
Let me get back to the newest example of a fucked up rally, but I'll get back to it.
So now that desensitizes the people, right? Once you see it once, it's not that shocking. Once you see it totally normalizes it. And I started noticing that around the G20. I'm like, you're really making us complacent with imperial, like, have you seen the new fucking, like, Toronto police cars?
Yeah.
And they're all gray. They look like something out of the Galactic Empire.
Yep.
Like, everything now is going with this very, like, obey, subjugate. If we say jump, you don't question it. You don't say how high, you fucking do it kind of thing.
How many fingers am I holding up?
And like you said, the people in power tend to have the foresight that we don't.
Right.
It's societal
manipulation. That's what governance is.
There's a massive culture and social shift that isn't even subtle anymore. You can feel it's not like a chessboard where things are being moved slowly. It's like someone took a ruler and shoved all the pieces across the board. It's being moved so drastically that I'm like, what is up? What is going? I don't know what you guys know that we don't. But this game is rigged.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have in mind.
Well, that's the scariest thing. And again, like, just Orwellian totalitarianism is the theme of the podcast. It's like, we know, we're gaining intelligence now that Russia's gone beyond influencing us by just posting shit on Facebook. They actually are hacking our digital systems, our digital electronics. And so the right always screams about how the vote's rigged, because if they're screaming about it, then they can go, well, we didn't do it, we were screaming about it. And I would argue that before the 2016 election, the votes weren't rigged. I don't know if that's the case anymore.
I would say...
Because Doug Ford did the same thing. He lost the popular vote, but he manipulated the districts to the point where he won.
Right.
And now, if you know that you can just hack into the electronic system and flip a vote with a switch. Because remember that guy testified before Congress about 10 years ago about the guy who created the electronic voting system?
It was the Gore-Bush election, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
No, it was the Obama election.
Was it Obama?
The argument was that Obama cheated his way in. The Democrats did. Because the Democrats are fucking scumbags too. They're just less totalitarianistic about it.
And also the fact that, like, they have the veneer of being like, no, we're not the Republicans.
Right.
So,
and they do ultimately do good, but they're also willing to cheat to do good.
Of course. Like, it's like fucking Hillary Clinton totally manipulated her way past Bernie.
Oh,
like,
yeah, she cheated her way in through.
And like people touted her as a hero.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
but this guy testified before Congress. You can find the video online if you search it on YouTube. That he developed the electronic voting system with a back door, so that you could just switch a vote if you wanted to.
Here's where it gets insidious. I believe that it's not just the 2016 election. I think that goes as far back as the 2001 Gore Bush.
Okay.
Because remember that everyone was celebrating Gore's win, and
the
all of a
huge
sudden,
Florida recount.
Yes, that recount happened. I think right then and there, again, they, them, the powers that be were like, oh, they bought it.
Yeah.
Oh, no way, we can use these now. Like, fuck it, man. If these votes, like, you want to tell me that the fucking two-party system works? The one man, one vote? No. The Electoral College is horseshit.
It's absolute horseshit. It worked back in the day.
It doesn't make sense for sustaining 300 million citizens.
No.
Everyone has smartphones in their pocket. Why wouldn't you just make the votes come from that?
Right.
It's
but then that's manipulatable.
Exactly, and that's just the problem. It's like there's no veracity to any of this anymore.
No.
I don't feel like these votes matter.
No.
I don't feel like there's any purpose to these elections.
The thing is, my ultimate belief of whether or not voting still matters will come in this November in America.
That's right.
Because
that's fast.
Yeah, like Trump rallies have 1/10 the amount of anti-Trump rallies. Like, the American majority is against what's happening to their country. They're against ripping children from their parents and fucking molesting them in prison camps.
Why?
They're against this. Right? They're ultimately against this. And I think that if there's a red wave, which is hilarious to hear Trump keep saying the euphemism for a period.
I love the idea that one of the most misogynistic presidents ever. It's like, dude, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like,
but if there is in fact a red wave in 2018, you know that didn't happen naturally, because just the statistics are out there. It's like his approval rating's minuscule. He lost by 3 million votes. He just won the college. So if there isn't a Democratic wave in 2018 in November, it's votes officially no longer matter.
No.
So what are we heading towards? What chaos are we heading towards where they need this type of totalitarianism?
Nothing good, man. Especially the way all the financial and political power seems to be shifting east. It feels like, hey, thanks, United States, you got us this far, but we're done with you.
Russia was once like a little kid at the kids' table, is now like the next superpower.
Yep.
Because they have a tape of Trump getting 2 hookers to pee on the bed a black president slept in. Like, everyone makes the joke that he was...
Is that what it was?
That's what it was. Everyone thinks it's like, oh, he got hookers to pee on him. It's like, no, think about this. He's super fucking racist. He went and used Obama's room, and he got hookers to pee on the bed. Why do you think that happened?
Interesting.
Let's really break this down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That would be, you know what, I would say that's the fucking smoking gun that would bring it all down, but bullshit. We lived through a video of Rob Ford smoking crack getting released, and no one gave a fuck. No one cared. He got on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
Like, no one fucking cared.
Let's talk about Rob Ford for a moment, because again, that's very Orwellian.
I agree.
And I said this to you earlier, and this is conspiracy theory territory, but it's sort of like a detective following a series of clues, where it's like, Rob Ford... or Doug Ford loses the election, the popular vote, but he wins because of the manipulation of the districts. Mm-hmm. Stephen Harper goes and meets with the Trump administration, who are in bed with Saudi Arabia. Less than a month later, Saudi Arabia, for a random non-reason that's happened a million times before, is one of our senators saying, hey, don't be such assholes with human rights violations. Just blow that out of proportion and cut off all trade with Canada. It's manipulating NAFTA negotiations, and it's manipulating the 2019 election in order to get conservatives back in.
Right.
It seems straightforward to me.
That's the thing. The second I saw Ford becoming premier, I was like, "That's it. Like, this race is run. We don't have a say in it.
It's going to be generations of insanity. Because I think there's no getting rid of. I think Japanese internment camps in World War II were horrifying and disgusting, and absolutely unapologetically god awful. That doesn't hold a candle to ripping children away from parents and raping them.
Yep.
That's a stain on America's flag that isn't going anywhere anytime. They are the villain now.
And what's worse is that it came in 2018, 21st century, where we like to think of ourselves as progressive, forward-thinking people.
Right.
Still one of the greatest atrocities that nations ever committed. Yeah. And it's what's worse now, I was thinking about as you were talking, is like, at least, Reagan, Thatcher, Jesus, I'll go all the way back to fucking Chairman Mao. Right. All those guys had the disadvantage of being in a society that didn't have a global perspective.
Right.
Where it wasn't like you could just pick up your fucking phone and see like, oh, no, these are atrocities that were committing. There's no excuse for this irresponsibility anymore.
No, not at all. And it just seems like a blowback to progressiveness.
Yeah. And I don't know. What scares me, and watching this film, seeing how easily group thought works, and this is a real dumbed down metaphor, but I just took the train back last night from Cornwall, and I notice it every time. The train from Cornwall will roll in to Toronto, and about 23 minutes out, it slows down. So what does everybody do? They even though they tell you stay seated until the train comes to a stop, everyone gets up and they line up before the door. They all stand there waiting for the door, and it's usually one or two guys that have the idea, and then the group thought kicks in.
Right.
So
we are a herd mentality species.
Everyone's sitting there irritated and pissed off, and they don't know why they're standing for 20 minutes before the train pulls into the station.
Yeah.
And they start getting mad at the train or the station.
Oh god.
Take it or it stops, and they get irritated. So I always just stay seated. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what's the difference between Via Rail showing up at a train station and the American government or whatever political party enforcing ideals that you just become complacent with?
Right.
Because if they control your history, fuck it, you're going to believe whatever you're told.
Oh, right.
So the idea that now
that's
people...
at the core of 1984.
Exactly, yeah. He controls the past, controls the future.
Right.
Who
controls the future controls the present.
There it is.
Yeah.
As a Rage Against the Machine fan, I really should have been on that a lot faster. But it's one of those things where I'm like, how much shit there is now that people just take at face value and agree with. And then while we sit there going, oh, this is ridiculous, it's like, yeah, but you bought it.
Yeah.
You bought and paid for a long time ago. So
yeah, that's my issue with the left wing in America. It's like you can rage tweet about Trump's actions all you want. It doesn't matter to the rest of the world. You're America. And America's doing this shit. So it doesn't matter. Like, if you sit on your fat ass tweeting about how angry you are, I don't give a fuck about you. Because you're just part of the problem. You're just keeping the argument going to distract from the reality of the actions that need to be taken in order to stop this.
And that's the thing. I feel like...
And I'm pretty chubby, so please don't think that was fat shaming.
Can you imagine if the Million Man March was a Facebook group that people shared? How far do you think we would get with civil rights? And that's what I can't stand about nowadays is the slacktivism, the idea that people...
slacktivism, that's brilliant.
People are fucking getting so passionate. I did a good job today because I shared that story.
Right.
But no one's taking any action. I'm probably going to take some heat from this for a bunch of feminists and from women, but the whole cat hat thing...
What's the cat? Oh, the pussy hat?
The pussy hats. I got the idea, I got the mentality, I was all for it.
But then
the next day, everybody went home, put their cat hats on their shelves, and patted themselves on the back. I'm like, it's not over.
Yeah.
Like, what's the next step?
I was about to say that, because I've been to a couple like rallies and things in my life, and it's always so sad that afterwards, like, we made a real difference today. We stood in the officially designated protest zone. And we let them know that we don't like what's going on.
The officially designated...
And they all pat themselves on the fucking back like they're changing the world.
Yeah.
You're like, no, you're not. You're playing into a narrative that's beyond your control.
But the next time you goddamn it, some dude said some misogynistic shit, you're going to let it fly. And I don't understand this fucking ideology of... we've turned the idea of rebellion and not being complacent into an activity, like a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's why we are where we are.
Yeah.
They've like, after, what do you call it, the war on terror started up, that was it. I remember that, the designated protest zones. You need a license to protest in this area.
And you can only move right here.
Only right here. And I'm like, okay, so literally the last form of defiance that the people has been
gone.
controlled.
Yeah.
So that's it. We're almost 20 years after that, and it's become a memory. Who controls the past, man? So it's just like, this is it, man. Like, we're looking down the barrel of it.
There was a really fucked up protest that just happened because I don't remember where it was and what town it was in, but a bunch of they're called like the Good Old Boys or something. It's an alt-right
I think I know what you're talking about.
KKK group.
Yeah.
And then the cops defended them and beat the fuck out of the counter protests. So the cops, and because cops love Donald Trump. They love the fuck out of someone who gives them the ability, hey, Bill, I've been meaning to take a couple weeks paid vacation, so I'm just going to go shoot a black kid in the head. Like, that's the fucking world that cops live in now. Mm-hmm. They don't get any punishment. There's no repercussions for their actions. Yeah. They're a legitimized mafia.
Yeah.
And
the worst comes to worst, you can sell your paintings on fucking Instagram.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry. Zimmerman wasn't a cop. I'm sorry. Wait, let me roll that one back.
But
sorry.
and I hate the argument too. It was like, who are you gonna call if your shit gets stolen? It's like, that's the trade-off. Is it? That's the fucking trade-off?
So therefore, I should just let them get away with whatever they want.
They should be horrible boys club mafiesto pieces of human filth. But I have someone to call when my shit gets stolen.
Yeah. If you're white. If I call them, different story.
They don't give a shit.
Different story.
They'll break into your fucking house and think you're the guy stealing it.
That last name in Chama sounds like it has too many consonants in it.
Who was it? The famous dude the famous black dude who a neighbor called the cops on him. He got home to cops in his house, and they had the guns trained on him. And he was like, "What if it was my kid with his video game controller in his hand? Would my kid be dead right now?" It was like Ving Rhames or someone. It was someone big. It's insanity. It's insanity, Sean Hannity. I don't know. The whole world's burning, and again, I think we kind of tricked you guys into listening to this by saying it's a 1984 review, but in fact, it's just something that I think is important for everyone to talk about right now, which is just this nationalistic alt-right movement that's embracing or encompassing the whole world.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like, I know people in America think that's the world. And people in North America think we're the world, but this is everywhere.
Yeah,
this is everywhere.
And again, like it's normalizing it. America has finally had the courage to speak up about how they really feel about these immigrants. Brexit happens, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck. Like, what is this now? Like, is the world sincerely a bunch of closeted racists?
I think it's just honestly, the way I visualize it in my head is like a wave pool, and then it always goes. Right wing, left wing, but right wing is a stronger wave that's able to crash over and hit left wing because they're willing to do the evil fucking things that the left would, if they did it, they no longer would be progressives. So I picture this wave pool in my head where it's like every time the left gets up a bit, there's this massive reaction. It's sort of like, I always use the analogy of at one point in our evolutionary history, a group of primates had hats saying, "Make tails great again." Because all these assholes were being born without tails, and they were going, well, no, we have to keep things the way they were, make tails great again. And the make tails great again wave is always stronger. It's always able to crash down because they're willing to go to lengths that we aren't.
So what you're saying, my friend, is that we need a V.
We need a V.
We do need a V.
Honestly, I don't think the death penalty is appropriate for a modern society. Having said that, if you are profiting off of immigrant children being ripped from their parents and fucking them, you should be hung in a public square to set an example for the rest of us.
Can I suggest another alternative? You find the fucking biggest, meanest brothers from fucking D Block.
Just
You know what I'm saying? The lifers, those guys who are in there and like everyone in the prisons terrify them. You give them fucking, they just get free game.
Yeah.
It's like Bubba and his bitches.
Do what you want to this.
Oh, yeah.
Again, if you're profiting off of these camps holding these children, you're scum.
Yep.
And if you're one of these assholes, there was 400 reports of children saying they'd been molested. They're going back to their parents just dead-eyed. Like, their lives are fucked now.
What are the odds that those kids don't get radicalized now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and justifiably so.
Yeah. You're like, this sounds awful, but literally my government fucked me over.
Right.
Like, it's
This podcast is definitely going to get us on a watch list.
Yeah.
But
yeah. No,
that's fair.
You know what? I'll take the bullet.
I'll take it. But I think that's the other thing too. We've talked about this before. Is that we've spent since the 1960s. the hippie, quote-unquote, movement was about the unity of the human species. We're all one. We all work together. One life doesn't matter. We all work together. Mm-hmm. And they have systematically shut that down from everything from home computers to online chat forums where you can just scream into the void, never have to leave your house, to giving prizes for last place, making everyone think that they're special, that they're unique, that they're beautiful and unique individual snowflake flower. And I don't mean that snowflake in that alt-right bullshit term. Then no one's willing to gel together in a group to fight for what's right because everyone's only concerned with their own well-being and they all think that the world revolves around them.
You just made me, because again, like I'm consistently living 30 years in the past, 30 years in the future. Someone that says something, I immediately go like, okay, so what was happening 10, 15 years ago that would have taught this person that, and they would have grown up into this individual.
Into this thing.
Yeah, whenever I see like a 50-year-old talk, I'm like, what 20-year-old were you?
Right.
So when I hear like, people nowadays, 20-year-olds, like the 30 in the 80s, you're right, like kind of just get everyone under the ribbon, like everyone's special. It was all the kids of these baby boomers, the grunge Generation X being all like, yeah, we are special and entitled, we're that I'm going to grow up and drink kombucha and have a twisty mustache.
Right.
And now those guys, ironically, are the ones who don't really have much of a message as their grandparents did, or as much gusto or energy.
No, fascism and things are a thing of the past. They're stories now. They don't mean anything to them. And they're unwilling to do anything beyond scream on Twitter, go to a designated protest zone, pat themselves on the back, and think they're changing the world.
And it's for reasons like that my boy Ving Rhames apparently got guns pulled on. This is bullshit.
Was Ving Rhames, yeah.
I just want to read this quote real quick from The Guardian. I opened the door and there was a red dot pointed at my face from a 9mm. They said, put your hands up. They almost shot Marcellus Wallace. Nobody.
And they went into his house because a racist-ass neighbor said, I saw a black guy go into the house next door.
Had they not seen him in the neighborhood before?
Maybe maybe they were doing it to him on purpose. I don't know. There was no reports of what the neighbor's motives were for calling them. But the fact that that's all it takes. House, black guy, cops are busting in.
The same thing happened. A realtor was going to check his house, and he got on video and he even shot the woman and everything. Luckily, the cops were on his side. They showed up. They heard both sides of the story, looked at her, looked at him, and they're like,
right.
I see why this happens. This racist idiot of a woman, you know what I mean?
Luckily, just being a monster.
Yes, but this is like, I mean, even one time here, I was chilling in the living room. Doorbell rings, and I opened up, and it was like this random black guy, and he was like, "Oh, thank God." Hey man, I'm just wondering, is there an open house around here? And I was like, not that I know. He was like, I thought it was like 212 or 210. I was like, yeah, this is 214, man. I'm sorry, I don't know. And he's like, all right, man, thanks a lot though, because I'm walking through this neighborhood and I'm like, a lot of white folks up in here. I just don't want to get shot. So I was really happy you opened the door. And I laughed, but I'm like, that's very tangible. It's extremely tangible.
That's one of those like laughing at someone falling down type laughs where you're like,
oh yeah, I see what you mean. I know.
I want to branch off on something on your comment about like generationally, like 30 years ago, 30 years in the future, because something happened recently that I think is indicative of cultural manipulation, and it was a Catherine Wynne incentive to because she was a monster. I consider myself left wing. I consider myself riding the center on a lot of things, but I'm ultimately I like to think I'm progressive. Catherine Wynne was a fucking idiot, but she initiated an incentive where communities could choose to reduce speed limits outside of schools or elderly zones if they wanted to, but the caveat was that you had to set up automatic ticket cameras.
Okay.
So if you're driving at 3 a.m. going 60 in a 40 in front of a school, a camera just goes and immediately takes your picture and sends you a ticket in the mail. Everyone... people I respected who I had conversations with was just, again, to go back to 1984, all the people going, Oceana, and screaming, kept saying that, well, if you're against this, then you're against keeping kids safe. If you're against this, then you're against keeping the elderly safe. Like, only, like, some speeding monster would be against this kind of shit. And I'm like, but look at the larger picture. Look at a kid who's 10 years old right now. By the time they're 20, they wouldn't bat an eye at implementing that system on every road in Canada.
Yep.
So now it's not that you're teaching people to drive safely, it's you're forcing them to. And that is never a way
it's not the same thing.
To control humanity. There's never a way. Because all governance it's like you teach a kid to look both ways before they cross the street. That's social manipulation. All governance is that on a larger scale. So it was mind-boggling. The people couldn't get it. The people couldn't get, like, that's the buzzword. It's about the kids. Won't someone please think of the children?
That's the thing. If you ever want to like hide behind job security and the children, like
Right.
and like that's
Right. And that is just a little microcosm of what's happening everywhere right now. Is that people are screaming at each other. 2 + 2 again. 1984. The real freedom is to be able to say 2 + 2 = 4. We don't get to say that anymore because now it's alternative facts. It's my opinions are as great as your facts. It's Trump's inauguration crowd was the biggest crowd in the history of the fucking world. Blah 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 blah.
Yep.
And then they find a buzzword like kids or elderly, and then you get both sides agreeing while screaming at each other.
Yeah.
But ultimately leading to the same results.
That's what I can't stand about. I think it was John Oliver I was watching about the whataboutism.
The whataboutism, yes.
Which is what drives me fucking nuts. Is that people scream and scream, but instead of acknowledging the issue, we just bring up another one that's
Right.
equally upsetting.
Well, what about that?
And it's like, but that leaves the initial issue unresolved, and now everybody's angry.
Yeah.
Like I can't. There's never a point where you're talking to a person who's yelling at you where they're going to go, oh, you know what? I haven't thought about it that way. Good point.
Good point. No, everyone just is going to get into like an overused term as they get into their echo chambers.
Yep.
They find people that agree with them.
Yep.
And even the internet is set up to, algorithms are meant to read your interests to keep you in your bubble.
Yep.
So you're never exposed to anything. And again, the whole...
The number of articles I see about fucking taxidermy. No, I'm kidding.
Weird. But I actually go to my way...
Human taxidermy, I'm sorry.
I go to my way to search for alt-right stuff. Because then
Yeah, I
that
agree.
allows me to see what the other side's up to.
You know how many clan blogs I've read?
Right.
I have to know my enemy.
You got to know these
Yeah.
monsters, these
Yeah.
motherfuckers. And it's intriguing, though, when you start getting, like, Facebook suggested posts of horribleness. You're like, no! But it does keep me knowing what's up.
I don't know. It's the us and them mentality. Again, back to the Battersea Power Station, dude. I'm a Pink Floyd nerd. I saw Roger Waters earlier this year, and whenever they did Pigs, it's all about the White House, right? Haha, charade you are.
Right.
Sure enough, images of Trump popped up on the screen of like the White House as like this military fucking Tron looking White House.
Right.
And it was disheartening because it was almost like Pink from Pink Floyd, the fictional character, being like, I told you this was going to happen.
Yeah.
I showed you streams of fucking fascist people marching to the streets screaming to a flag
Yeah.
about their rights and how they were entitled and greater than this other race of rapists and terrorists who were this fictional group of people that were coming to kill them and shit.
Yeah.
And you didn't listen. You didn't fucking listen because you casted them as the them. We are the us. They're
Yeah,
wrong.
they're the
Fuck
them.
you. That happened recently. I saw a version of that, a microcosm of that. I was in Cornwall. I'm at a bar talking to some kids. They could have been more than like early 20s. And a couple of them were cool. One of them had an Eagles of Death metal shirt, so I started talking to this guy. There's this one skater kid. He's talking to my friend Lindsay. And immediately, within like 2 sentences, he's spouting facts that he clearly just read off. They're like, did you know that this year in the States, there's been over 300 students, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, so, okay, I get it. You want to seem... I was that kid. I was like, why am I so angry? You start paying attention a little bit and you realize how badly you're getting fucked over.
Oh, I thought he was going to be doing it for the other side.
I must get on the rooftops and like, alert everybody. Oh my God. But dude, I'm fucking 10 years older than you. He was trying to tell me about like, oh, but you don't understand like what the Aryan race was trying to accomplish. I was like, you sincerely don't think I know about the atrocities and racism of World War II?
Yeah.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah.
And that's what on a larger scale, that's these people I find. It's the idea of like, no, we're us. We know, we're informed.
Right.
You're them, you don't know. And
You
it's
don't
like,
know.
what makes you think on any level that these people don't inhibit the same information that you do, that they don't have the same concerns and apprehensions for their families and friends and for themselves that you do?
Right.
I think that's what a majority of the planet wants. Most human beings, if you ask them your core beliefs, what do you really want? It's like security for my friends and family and myself. That's
But
really
if you
it.
keep them really angry, that all goes to the wayside.
Exactly.
Well, that's another thing too. Is like concept of being triggered. That's the left playing into fascist right-wing ideologies. If you have people who are so incapable of being exposed to reality, then you have people who are easily controlled and manipulated.
Again, going back to the thing we were saying earlier about, did we say, I can't remember if we said on the podcast or not, about the, if you're, cut this if we did, the whole, like, if you're a pedophile, I wouldn't tell you a pedophile joke.
Yeah. Oh, let's do it again.
So, I think it was Ricky Gervais that said it.
Yeah.
Anyways, if we double up, we'll take it But the idea of just like we can't have a dialogue if you're just going to go trigger warning before everything. You remember I think you talked about it on it was a Schindler's List.
Yes.
Review.
How before it there was like a minute-long page of like trigger warnings for this review of Schindler's List.
And it's based on history.
And that means a lot of people aren't going to watch it. It's insanity to me. And there was a great... I was watching an interview with Noam Chomsky about Trump, who was saying that this Republican Party is... He says, everyone calls it hyperboil, and that I'm being over the top when I say this, that it's the most dangerous political party in history. Because Hitler wanted the world, Stalin wanted the world... These people are actively repressing science and undermining democracy during a time environmentally where we could literally be at the end of the world. Their money is more important than the human race's survival. Hitler didn't want to destroy the world. These guys' actions are allowing the potential destruction of the planet. Burning coal at this point in the horrifying global climate we're in.
And what's so sickening, it's at the expense of selling out the very people they claim to be fighting for.
Oh, for sure.
And
That's
I'm
the
like,
word. That's the most frustrating part, because it's the same with Doug Ford voters.
Yeah.
They think he's fighting for them.
He's not.
But he's cutting rid of OHIP. He's cutting OHIP down. He's getting rid of Social Security.
I'm pretty sure they're going to use puppets for sex ed now.
Right. And where's all that money going? Back into our pockets? No, it's going to the rich constituents that or not constituents, his the people
whoever paid him.
Right. What are they called when you pay off?
Lobbyists.
Lobbyists. It's going to his lobbyists. So, but all the people, I don't understand, because I know that this is going to sound really horrible, but sometimes facts sound horrible because they've done multiple studies of right-wing ideologies versus left-wing ideologies, and they find, statistically speaking, right-wing ideologies accompany a lower intelligence score. So it's people who do typically like the idea of fascism, like the idea of someone who's going to yell words they understand, but don't actually make sense.
Right.
And they're going to govern them in a way that they're controlled and taken care of, at least from their perspective, but then ultimately they use those people's want for that to manipulate them and then give them nothing that they promised them. Trump's doing it, Ford's doing it.
Right.
And again, I don't want to sound like an asshole, but these are facts that they do tend to correlate with lower IQ scores.
I think that just... I don't want to fucking ruffle too many feathers, but I think that comes from... It's a very mammalian thing of wanting a paternal figure watching you at all times. If there's comfort in that of like
an alpha male
or
God,
you know what I mean, like some sort of like deity figure. It's comforting to know that my actions aren't on my shoulders.
Right.
That God has a higher plan. The government has a higher plan. They are my best interests in mind.
And that tends to go hand in hand with people who are a little less smart. They're a little less capable of making up their own minds about shit.
Again, thinking...
I know intelligence is measured in different ways. I could never weld a fucking car. I get that.
Right.
But when you're measuring it specifically on the line of ability to rationalize your environment and manipulate your reality to create a better future.
And self-awareness of what you're contributing to the larger global community.
I'm not religious at all. If Jesus existed, he was probably the first guy that experienced abstract empathy. The ability to think of someone on the other side of the world you've never met the same way you would love your brother. That's concept, empathy, is lacking in the right. And, and empathy is an evolutionary trait.
Right.
So again, I think it's a little too broad when I say intelligence. That's too insulting. I mean specifically self-awareness, empathy, and ability to calculate a better world for your kids.
Yeah, it's a myopic view of the future. What I hate about any... This sounds... I mean, like, it doesn't seem to have any longevity for a global scale.
Right.
It's very self-interested.
Buck of beer's great right now.
Yes, exactly! Oh, I'm sure that's what they'll need in the year 3000, is a buck of beer. Like, for fuck's sake,
guys. Can you believe our buck of beer was... Or our Build the Wall was buck of beer? What the fuck is wrong with us?
We are Canadian, so yeah, I kind of can.
We get cheaper donuts, too?
Yo, what time's the beer store open till?
Yeah.
Can you make that later?
There's a great quote I read about 1984, which I would love to read right now to the audience. We're getting near the end. The problem isn't that citizens are told the opposite of what is true. The real issue is that their experiences have become so limited, they lack the perspective and the language to differentiate between major concepts. How do you want to introduce Newspeak without actually introducing Newspeak? Cut budget to public education.
See, and that's going to bring me to probably my biggest problem in North America, and it's really bubbling to the forefront nowadays. I have never, ever been a fan of the fucking education system in this continent.
No, we're both public education kids. They're not very good.
No, I like the idea
of... You
can
speak firsthand.
First of all my textbooks were from the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Archaic as shit.
Oh, yeah.
Secondly, the idea of it's just read, memorize, At the end of the week,
Recycle,
regurgitate, repeat.
Yeah.
So in other words, be smart enough to memorize facts, but dumb enough not to question them.
And it's not, we don't get taught how to think, we get taught just what to think.
What to think, and also like what answers will best get you the grade.
Right.
It doesn't really like. I was lucky enough to have a couple, especially in English and art classes, like teachers who taught you to create, to think creatively.
There's always that one person that for someone who has the spark in them, and I'm not the smartest guy. I'm a bit of a dimwit in a lot of ways, but at least I understand that my brain evolved to not just memorize shit
Exactly.
and spew it back out.
Like I
can critique it.
Exactly, and I think that's where that improvisational thinking is kind of crucial if you want to evolve as a fucking individual, let alone a species.
Right.
Schools don't teach that.
No.
And that's the problem. I could go on for 2 podcasts about my fucking elementary and high school experience and why I thought it was the stupidest fucking thing.
Dude, I was on the honors roll.
Me too. Oh, dude.
Yeah.
In grade 11, I was on the honors roll. I won the English award in 12th grade and the art award.
I was for art and math.
Yeah, I wasn't a great, then the like 10, 11 years were the lost years, but I pulled my shit together to
yeah, grade 9 we had an initiative in the school I went to where you couldn't fail grade 9.
Oh.
If that initiative wasn't there, I would have failed grade 9.
Gotcha.
By grade 12, I was on the honors roll for our film study course, our media course, and for math, and for English.
But I think that's come to the forefront now, where like same with that kid in the bar, the one who's regurgitating facts at me, acting like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
We've been taught that like, no, if you can memorize facts, it makes you smart.
Right.
You're informed because you read someone else's opinion.
Right.
So all I have to do is just spit it out, and therefore it's now my thought.
Now, yes, exactly.
No. You read articles, then you read the opposite view, and then you form your opinion.
Right.
I don't get this like read and regurgitate ideology.
It's so interesting now because so many people you can talk to, you know exactly what sites they
Yes.
Like,
Oh, totally.
You got that off of CNN, or you got that off of like Coming Soon or something.
You can
Rocks.
hear like certain tones coming out of their voice. I know exactly what
Where
fucking.
you got that.
Yeah.
I read that same article.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also have Facebook. Those come up on my newsfeed as well. Like-
And then our sex ed was just don't be gay. Pretty much.
I remember we had to watch a sex ed video that was probably fucking from the 70s, judging by the picture quality.
Yeah.
But I remember at one point
terrible.
when they showed the live birth, the girl was completely naked, which I didn't get. On like
That was for the young lads.
or whatever. But I was lucky enough to have this cool teacher, Guy, and he was like, because he was so serious about the whole time, like when they're going like the testes and the hold the semen and it's ejaculated into the vagina, you're all giggling. He's like, guys, come on. So by the time it gets to the birth scene, the bell had rang, we're going out for a break, and he's like, oh, look at it come out, rewind! Slow motion, rewind! We had to watch it go back in and come back out.
Maybe that was because, again, it was male-centric sex ed in our day. Maybe it was be like, well, if we have to make them watch a baby be born, at least let them see a pair of boobs.
You know, I was noticing that during 1984, or, I don't know, 90% of fucking media, where they'll always show a full frontal of a woman, but God forbid you show a dick.
John Hurt's half turn when he's looking around to cover his wiener.
She's full frontal half that movie, but I just love the idea that majority of directors, up until now, have been men, so they're just I don't want to see another dude's dick.
It's it's
gross.
It's always been the double thing. It's you can't see an actual vagina. You can't see the lips, you can't see the clit, you can't see the labia, you can't see an actual vagina, and you can't see a penis. So I guess women are always able to be full frontal because it's usually covered with some hair, or their legs are pressed together so you can't actually see the sex organ itself. They
so in
always
other words,
cover
what
the
you're
two
saying is,
sex organs.
to reach true gender equality, we need to start introducing a lot more tucks and manginas.
I guess so, yeah. I think that is ultimately what I'm saying.
Well, I've got a head start.
Well, I want to tell you my sex ed story that I was teased for being gay. Again, this is the 80s, so you were allowed to do that, I guess. It's fucking ridiculous. Because in my school, there was a kid in a wheelchair, a physically handicapped kid, and me, the fat kid. You weren't allowed to pick on the other two, so who do you think got the brunt of it,
It's
right?
elementary school, I'm guessing?
This is grades kindergarten to 8.
All right.
And so in our sex ed class, when they were showing the lady stuff, I was all giggly and squirmy. When they showed the dude stuff, I was just sitting there watching it, because I'm like, I have that.
Right.
It's not weird to me. But then everyone was all weird and squirmy with the dude stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, and into the girl stuff. So afterwards, they bugged me about being gay for 6 months.
Let me ask you this. How many of those guys turned out to be gay?
I don't know. I didn't keep in touch with a single one of them.
At least one of them's gay.
But I bet you at least one of them.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
That's why it's the more uncomfortable you are with male contact, the more likely is deep down you want to suck a dick.
I mean, it's not surprising, going back to 1984 and, these politicians that fucking rally against, same-sex marriages are usually the ones who get caught with a bunch of blow
Right.
Sucking a dude's
some
dick in an
dude.
airport. It's
Some
just like,
kid.
yep.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know, like the story we're told is completely not matching the reality that we're experiencing anymore.
And one last little caveat is the horrors of the rise of the Catholic Church.
Hey, I'm a Catholic.
I'm a Protestant, I think. I don't know. I got kicked out of Sunday school when I was a kid.
So what you're saying is I gotta really start fucking sucking up to those guys.
It's messed up. It's so weird.
I'm gonna ride those coattails.
But I question when are they going to start saying we're okay with gay people now? Because like in the 1940s they were against black people, but then white people started to leave the church, so they were like, okay, let's recruit some black people. Now the most religious people in North America are black people.
Dude, that's the way it had to be. Otherwise, you're not on the team.
Right.
That's the way it goes.
But it's so fucked up because it's like you're worshiping the gods of your fucking monsters who brought you here in chains. So at what point do you think they're gonna have to be like? What point do you think the black community is gonna go? Hey, these aren't our gods. What the fuck? And then the Catholic churches going to have to go. Gay people are welcome. Gay people are welcome now. We need to make billions of dollars and not pay taxes.
Are you sure they're welcome? Yeah, we have a bunch of them.
Yeah, it's fine.
We've been relocating them for years.
We've been moving them around a lot. They're welcome now. It's all messed up. Anyways, we're living in 1984 and 2018. It just took a little longer than Orwell thought.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more insidious and it's a lot more subtle, but it's still there. And I encourage everyone to watch this movie and read this book.
Yep.
Because it's very...
I'm not sure what the remake's going to be like, but I'm sure it's going to rub some people the fucking wrong-ass way.
It's going to be... Oh, yeah. Now that we're so divided... It's going to...
Coming 2019, just before the next presidential election, that's going to become up.
You know why it's going to rub us the wrong way? Because it's going to be a PG-13 shaky cam action shit. It's going to be like, well, how do we get modern audiences into this story? And we're going to be sitting there going, fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I think that about wraps it up.
Well, I mean, like, I would say tune in next week, but let's see, we pissed off the fucking American government, the Catholics, pretty much anyone on the political spectrum with this podcast. So if we are back next week,
and we're in the middle of a copyright infringement dispute. We had two claims. One claim said, "Oh yeah, you're in the right," and gave up the claim. The other claim we're still waiting on. So between that and this, by next week we could our channel could be just gone.
Yep, as with us as well, we'll become what would they call non-persons?
We're gonna be non-persons,
or
it's going to be V for Vendetta style that we're going to have a bag put over our head and disappeared. That's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Alright, guys.
Well, yeah. Hopefully see you next week. In the meantime, check us out on SpaceActionHeroes.com.
A big, nice, gray hug this podcast.
If you want to it'll help us get bail if you purchase some of these podcasts off of Bandcamp.
Or at least help an investigation into the whereabouts of my corpse.
Of where we are, yeah. That'll be our posthumous Facebook pages in honor of us will be
posthumous.
There it is. I don't know where that point was going. Now I'm just worried.
Pretty sure I just saw a red dot on my shirt. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Alright, see you guys next week, maybe.
Bye!
That is humanity. It will not last forever. You can escape from it whenever you choose. Everything depends on you. You reduced me to this. No, Winston.